Was this whiskey aged in a crystal barrel?
No, this is the new whiskey from Teeling, their crystal malt whiskey. So let me tell you a bit about it in this week's review. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Matt, I'm the whiskey nerd.
I'm Rose and I'm the whiskey noob.
And like we said, this week we're looking at the new crystal malt whiskey from Teeling. So we get it into the glass, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Now, crystal malt, it doesn't mean it was aged in a crystal barrel or anything like that.
Because can you even imagine?
I don't think it would actually do much in the aging, it's just glass. Crystal malt is essentially when so in the malting process, you get the malt, they get the malted barley, you kind of dry it out. But what they do for crystal malt is they kind of cook it a little bit more. I'll put a picture up there so you can see it. So it's like been cooked, and some of the sugars in the barley
crystallized?
Crystallized, and actually makes for a much darker malt.
Ooh.
So yeah, again, you'll see that in the picture. I think the darkest malt goes to like what's called chocolate malt. Yeah, where like they use that for like stout beers and you get those really dark flavors. But crystal malt is almost like caramelized, where you're starting to get some of those sugars crystallized and caramelized, and it should make for a much sweeter whiskey.
Okay.
Apparently, because there's unfermentable sugars in there, because it's been crystallized, you will get about 10% less whiskey, or less alcohol, I suppose, at the end of it than with regular malt. And if you go beyond like 18% of this crystal malt, it doesn't really work for fermentation. You get like a lot of like kind of leftover.
So there's a lot of science going on. The science of crystal sugars.
Yeah, so we were actually at an event in the Teeling Distillery recent enough where they kind of showed this off, and I was talking to the head distiller, Alex Chasko, about this. He said there's 18% of this whiskey. It's a single malt whiskey, but it's 82% of it is that regular single malt.
Okay.
And then 18% is that crystal malt. So it's not I don't think they can do 100% crystal malt.
No, it sounds like the science doesn't work.
The science doesn't add up, but it is that. And we found a little bit more information they don't kind of publicize here. It's aged 8 years old. So actually, this was one of the first products they made in the distillery.
Yeah.
But they just haven't released it. They've been aging it in the background.
Well, it takes time to age things if you want something nice like.
So normally Irish whiskey has to be at least 3 years old, but this is about 8 years old. It was aged entirely in virgin American oak.
Oh.
You typically aren't the biggest fan of virgin oak, because
it
gives that. But with this one, it should be a little bit more.
Maybe the sweetness will help. Edge off the oak.
Edge off
the
that
virgin oak.
The virgin oak, where you get a lot more of that kind of oaky, spicy bite.
Yeah.
But that sweetness, that caramelized sugar kind of note should, I think, balance it out a little bit. It is coming in at 46%. Yep, 46%.
I love 46.
And it's coming in, I think there was 18,000 bottles in the release of this.
Okay.
So it is going to be like, it's
limited. Is it 18,000 worldwide?
I think 18,000 worldwide. It's been released first in Ireland. It'll probably make its way elsewhere. I know you can get it at the distillery. You can get it from their web shop and a few other kind of online stores.
Okay.
But it's probably going to make its way around the world eventually.
So basically, if you can't find it, wait it out a little bit. But also, if you don't want to wait, why not come to Dublin, go to Teeling Distillery,
come to Dublin
grab some.
and go to the distillery. But I think that's all we have to say about the whiskey itself.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Let's go for the nose. Cheers.
Cheers.
Sláinte. Oh, it is non-chill filtered, and that's its natural colour there as well.
There is no alcohol-y smell on the nose. I just kept going in, and it just kept smelling sweet.
Yeah, it's like apples, pears, like orchard fruits, but like a caramel apple, toffee apple.
Ooh,
you know?
I love caramel toffee apples.
Because I think Teeling's malt, they were trying out a couple of different styles, but I think their malt, it gives this kind of orchard fruits.
And I love their core malt, because that was the first malt whiskey that I liked.
That was the first malt whiskey and I think the core of it, the flavour is that kind of like orchard fruits, apples and pears.
Yeah.
So when you add in this crystal malt, you get that toffee and caramel as well into there.
Anytime we mention apples and like the caramel covered apples, I always think to fall, and I always think of cinnamon, because cinnamon goes well with apples. So I'm not sure if that's just because I can smell it, or that's just what I'm like my natural pattern of thoughts leads to.
I'm getting some cinnamon here as well.
Okay, you do have a more sensitive nose.
Yeah, but like the virgin oak, especially virgin American oak, gives you a bit of vanilla, gives you a bit of like kind of that cinnamon baking spice, I wouldn't maybe as far as some bourbons we've tried.
Yeah.
Have been very cinnamon forward, very like what do you call those red hot candies?
Red Hots, yeah.
It's really cinnamon
It's
sugar.
in your face cinnamon.
Here,
this is not that.
It's cinnamon and sugar, but not like those.
It's a breeze of cinnamon.
Yeah.
Going past your ear. Like a lover's breeze.
A breeze of going past your ear, maybe past your nose.
Well, it goes to your ear from the back, past your ear to your nose.
Past your ear to
You
your
gotta think about it. We're not talking practicalities here.
We're not talking practicalities here. Yeah, like it's quite fruity on the nose. It's quite apples and pears.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the more I'm sitting with it, the more I'm getting that kind of...
Or like stone fruits.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like little cherry to me. Like cherry blossoms, you know?
I could get a little bit of flour, but for me, the more I go into it, I'm getting like that kind of toasted oak, not really like the burnt oak, not that heavy char, but like a little bit of like toasted oak spice, because it has been 8 years in that barrel. So.
Okay. Now I'm quite happy that I can't actually smell the virgin oak because I generally don't like that. So I think we should go in and taste this.
I think we're going for the palate.
I'm very curious. Cheers.
Sláinte.
Crystal.
It's quite thick. It's almost like it's like a liquidy caramel.
Ooh.
Quite thick. You get this big like caramel toffee spreads across your palate. And then you get a bit of spice behind it.
I feel all consumed.
All consumed. What do you...
I got the opposite.
Okay.
The spice hit me first. The spice and the oakiness, but not in like a confrontational way.
Not in a confrontational way.
And then it went to the sweetness. So I got that like intense cinnamon spice, but it was like flowing. That's why I was like, it's all encompassing.
Yeah, the mouthfeel on this is quite thick.
Yes.
It's quite like...
Visceral?
Viscous.
It's
like, it doesn't taste like honey, but it feels like honey.
Yeah.
Really that thick kind of, it spreads.
Yeah. And it's still there. I can taste it still.
Yeah. There's not a huge amount of fruitiness for me. I'll go in for a second sip, but the nose was apples, pears, and caramel and some spice. The palate is more spice and caramel with some apples in the back. It's almost like
definitely in the background. Maybe it builds if you keep drinking.
Sip.
Yeah, see what you find. I'm very curious.
That spiciness is there up front. You get a lot of that caramel sugar.
Yeah.
As I'm breathing and talking, you get that oaky spice, a bit of oaky hit.
Yeah. Is there a hint?
I'm almost getting like a little bit of like, I don't want to say, it's almost like a what do you call it, an apple turnover.
Oh.
So that's like kind of a pastry, but one that's not like
apple forward.
Yeah, and it's almost like it's been overcooked or overbaked, where you get those grains.
Okay.
I wouldn't say
it's
burnt.
not apple pie.
It's not an apple pie. I wouldn't say burnt, but it's like that, like an apple pastry.
Okay.
That's been like cooked more.
What about like an apple tart?
Yeah, well, it's more about that, like that really
that
caramelized, the cookedness, like almost like into that not charred or burnt, but into that caramelized or crystallized, sugary kind of feel.
Okay, I can kind of get you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we'll go in for the finish.
Yeah.
And see what lasts the longest.
Ooh.
Cheers. So, like again, up front you get all that kind of sweetness. You get the spice. For me, on the finish, as I'm talking, the thing that lasts longest for me is that kind of oaky spice.
Okay.
With those kind of cooked grains. The fruitiness for me doesn't really make a return journey.
Yeah. For me, I think the finish is quite short and light. Like, also, as I'm talking, that's a great phrase, by the way, as I'm talking, because like it aerates it and like
you get this,
literally as I'm talking, the taste is changing. So now I'm getting a lot more of like that like biscuity, spicy kind of vibes, like as the air is flowing through. But I still don't get a super long finish, and I don't know if that's because of the 46%, or maybe it's those fruity notes kicking in, and it's light, and it's back there.
It might almost be like a little bit of whiplash. Like the palate was so thick and heavy. Then as soon as you go to the finish, like as you were saying, like it does last. There's some notes that do last.
Yeah.
But it's not as thick. It's not as heavy. It doesn't fall off a cliff and stop. It just drops quite suddenly, becomes much lighter.
Yeah.
You get those grains, you get the kind of biscuity notes.
But what if
but what if?
What if it's not all about the finish?
It's not all about the finish.
Because I can still taste it in my mouth, even now talking later. So what if it's about that?
I think, yeah, in the finish, some parts of it, like the sweetness, that kind of the light bit of fruitiness,
Yeah.
that falls off. But then you get that oak and you get that kind of caramelized sugar lingers on. So it's almost like it's a short and a long finish.
Yes.
Like parts of it are long.
It's short where you think would be long, but it's long where you think it would be short.
Because the palate was so thick and, as you said, all-consuming.
All-consuming. I am still consumed.
You think that those are the notes that are going to last on the longest, but they fade off, leaving you with that kind of baseline of that oak and that caramelized sugar.
True.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
So, final thoughts. Do you like it?
I do like it.
Same. It's really nice. It's a little bit different, I think, than a normal single malt.
Yeah.
Because it's, again, aged in virgin oak. Not many Irish single malts are going to be aged solely in virgin oak.
Yeah.
You'll get like bourbon casks, sherry casks, maybe like a finish in a virgin oak cask. You won't get an entirely virgin oak cask, but I think because it's got that extra sugary toffee caramel note, it doesn't become overpowered by the cask.
Yeah, I think this might be the first time I could say that I like a whiskey that was in virgin American oak. I think it might be that crystal sciencey bit that helps even out that oak. Because when I drink my whiskey, I don't want to drink it and be like, wow, this tastes like wood. I want to drink my whiskey and be like, wow, it tastes like crystal malt.
Yeah, one thing I just noticed on the back there, I'll put a picture of it if you can't see it, it says the Crystal Collection.
Will there be more?
There might be more. I think from that event we went to, we were talking to the distiller, I think their birthday batch this year, because Teeling Whiskey released a special whiskey, a limited run whiskey of whiskies for their birthday, and I think this year's birthday batch is a crystal malt whiskey that was aged in a different type of cask. I won't say which type of cask it was.
We'll keep it a secret.
We'll keep it a secret, but I know what it was.
But it was tasty.
It was really, really tasty. I think it's also 8 years old, just aged in a different type of cask, so they probably will have, if this is successful and if people do like it, you're probably going to see more of these kind of crystal malts in different kind of casks or with different finishes from Teeling. Yeah, so I think that's all there is to say about it. Like you said, we both enjoyed it. We're going to keep on enjoying it. I'm going to be making a cocktail with this whiskey later on this week. So if you want to see that, make sure you check back, because we put out whiskey reviews on Wednesdays. We put out cocktail recipes featuring whiskeys on Fridays. So if you want to see those, make sure you hit subscribe. But right now, we're going to enjoy these, and we'll see you next time. Sláinte.
Bye bye.